Welcome to Best Picture This, where it is always Oscar season. I'm Mike.
And I'm Brian. In this show, we reevaluate every Best Picture nominee from the 21st century and decide whether to keep it or kick it from its Oscar pedestal.
And this might be my favorite episode that we do each series.
I know,
Brian.
I love it. You look forward to it every time, because although we've only done 2 of them so far. Yeah. But I love it because I feel like I have so many secrets.
Yeah.
I've been watching these movies. You don't always know everyone that I've watched, although we do kind of swap lists, so that way in case one seems like an obvious, this one's to consider, I want to watch it if you think so.
Yeah.
And vice versa, maybe.
But yeah, we get to pull in other titles from the year that maybe are great, but were not nominated. And then we can kind of argue about our rankings a little bit. Do you think I can guess your number one?
I don't think you can guess my number one.
Can I have one guess? Leprechaun in the Hood.
Leprechaun in the Hood.
Leprechaun in the Hood.
No.
That's not your number
it's not
one?
Number one.
Wow. Okay. All right. In 2000, the nominees for Best Picture were Traffic, Aaron Brockovich, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Chocolat, and the year's winner, Gladiator.
Gladiator. Coming up in this special year 2000 Y2K finale show, we will reorder the Best Picture nominees, possibly select a new Best Picture, kicking off Gladiator from its throne. We'll also throw out the Oscars altogether and give our personal top 5s from the year. And we'll look at the whole slate of Oscars and pick a couple of other ones to kick off their pedestals, for example, Best Actor, etc. And we'll finish up with golden takes and trivia for the year. So, Mike, if you had to keep the 5, which you've already kicked a few, which ones how would you reorder the top 5?
This was actually really easy. This was the easiest part for me this year.
I took 5 seconds.
I think overall this was a good year for movies. 5 strong contenders. I don't think a lot of the best ones are on this list though. Yeah. So it wasn't grueling at all to reorder them. So from the bottom up, number 5, Chocolat. Number 4, Traffic. Number 3, Aaron Brockovich. Number 2, Gladiator. Number 1, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Mine were identical. The star power of Aaron Brockovich, to me, put it over Traffic. That was kind of a debate, somewhat.
I just think it works better. I think Traffic it does more than Chocolat. It's more ambitious. It tries for more. But I don't think a lot of it works. But I don't think that Chocolat really works either. But Aaron Brockovich is enjoyable. I mean, I
had fun watching it.
Yeah, it goes by quickly. I think it's good. It's solid.
Goes by quickly? Is that one of your criteria for great movies?
Sometimes. If it goes by quickly and you're engrossed the whole time and you're like, yeah, I'm having fun. It's good.
Yeah.
Then that's a good movie.
There are reasons to watch movies. Some, I want to be disturbed and shocked and like, my mind to be twisted to see the world differently, and other times I want to escape from everything. The strangeness of that daring night chase in Crouching Tiger, and I saw it again. I saw it 2 times in the past month, and it was even better the second time. Yeah. I watched it again in part to see if I really wanted to keep it over Gladiator as number 1, and watching it the second time, it sealed the deal. Like I would watch it again.
Oh yeah,
it was really great
for sure.
Okay, so moving on to our personal top 5s.
You want to go first?
Sure.
Go first.
That keeps the suspense more for me because I want to know what yours were. So there's 3 movies here that I wish I could include. And I really want to talk about one of them.
Do you want to say which ones you're kicking first?
Oh yeah. The ones I kicked are Chocolat, Traffic, and Aaron Brockovich. I'm going to keep in my top 5 Gladiator and Crouching Tiger.
Okay.
Which are the same 2 you kept.
Yep, they are.
I thought about cheating and just forgetting which ones I had kept.
Listen, you could cheat if you.
I'm going to cheat because it changes. Your perception changes over time.
Yes, and if you watch a movie at the time in the week and you like Gladiator and you say it should be kept, but then later on you see another one that you like a little bit better. Yeah, you
forget it.
Adjust on the fly.
So I'm going to not say what I want to say about one movie because it might be in your top 5. So I'll just save it for then. My number 5 is Gladiator. Are you not entertained? It's beautiful. However, it was very ambitious, the movie was, but I feel like the kind of complicated aspect of that, are you not entertained, which we talked about in the previous episode, it did kind of keep it from rising to the higher up in the show, in this list. My number 4 movie is Castaway. Which is something that I changed my mind on, right? After talking about it with you last, a week or 2 ago, whenever it was, it made me realize, like, you know what? This is not a perfect movie. But it had as much of an emotional pull on me as any other movie that I watched for the year 2000. So I think it belongs in the top 5. Number 3, Crouching Tiger. It's a masterpiece, of martial arts masterpiece, Ang Lee. It's reserved, which maybe kept it from going all the way up to the top. And I didn't like the ending as much, but I didn't dislike the ending as much as I did watching it the second time. So anyway, it's complicated. There's a lot to take in with that movie.
There really is.
It really is a masterpiece. And I think number 3 is, it could have been higher potentially. Number 2 is Billy Elliot.
Okay, number 2.
Is
all
this
right.
the Leprechaun reference you had?
No, Leprechaun in the Hood is a real movie that came out in 2000. It's a sequel to Leprechaun 1 and Leprechaun 2. I don't understand.
I thought
Do
you were
not
talking
know?
about... No, I have no idea what Leprechaun
Wow.
is.
So you thought I was
I thought
calling
you were
Irish people
Yes.
Leprechaun? Wow.
I wasn't going to...
No.
I thought you meant Leprechaun in the Hood, like little kid Billy Elliot living in the hood, because he is.
You think so little of me.
I do. And I don't know if this conversation is changing much of that, but in no movie was
And you thought that I was calling where Billy Elliot lives
in the hood.
All right.
Which is sort of is, I guess.
Yeah.
Apostrophe hood, like short for neighborhood. We'll say he lives in a neighborhood.
No, Leprechaun in the Hood is a slasher movie where he goes around killing people because they have his gold.
Did you watch this for your 2000 preparation time?
I didn't, but I've seen it before. I've seen a
Is
lot
it
of
going to be in your
Leprechaun.
top 5?
We'll see. It might.
I'm going to guess no, since the way you sort of joked about it.
He wants his gold, Brian.
In no movie was I rooting more for a character to get what he wanted than the young boy in this movie, Billy Elliot.
And it's shot so well.
That
it looks so
it
good.
It is beautiful. It's very, again, reserved. It's not flashy. I guess that's the same thing, but it's not a flashy movie at all, except a couple of really interesting shots. But Jamie Bell, for those who haven't seen it, I'd never even heard of it before. I was looking through to find my list of which ones to watch. I would look at other movies that were directed in key, or that were nominated in other key, categories. This one was nominated for Best Director. So to me, that seems like something I should watch and see if it matters for my top 5. Best Supporting Actress, Julie Walters was nominated also, and Best Writing, Original Writing for the screen, Lee Hall. To me, I mean, directing and writing as one of the top 5, I think that you've got to consider it, and it just really worked for me. It's about a young boy who discovers he likes ballet, not boxing, like his dad wants him to. And the changes throughout the movie are dramatic. The father, I thought the movie was, the father is like this villain in the first half. And then you realize that he's grieving for his wife.
Yeah.
That's why he's like such a jerk to his family. And the changes in the father are just so compelling and heartbreaking. And I always love to compare the opening image of the movie to the concluding image of the movie.
The concluding image is awesome.
Oh.
It's great.
The first scene is Billy Elliot, the kid, jumping up and down to like this, goofy pop music.
Mm-hmm.
He's on a trampoline, he's like in his bedroom just goofing around. And
then he's in Swan Lake.
He's a man. The most powerful sort of athlete that you could imagine in ballet. And it's like, it disrupts your expectations 100%.
Yep.
And I thought it was also a masterpiece of a small sort of family drama, but turned into something so big. It was just tremendous. I loved it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good pick, and I like the passion that you're bringing to it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's good.
I've been thinking about getting into acting myself. My number 1 movie is one that I was not even going to watch. I did not take this movie seriously whatsoever.
I'm getting excited.
Whatsoever. I've always thought of M. Night Shyamalan as a Sixth Sense and You're Done director. But it shocked me every scene how good Unbreakable is.
It is fantastic.
I could not believe it because, okay, so for those who haven't seen it, Bruce Willis is the sole survivor of a train wreck, and apparently he cannot be injured. So he meets Samuel L. Jackson, who is phenomenal and iconic, in this movie. And Samuel L. Jackson's bones break easily, and he's obsessed with comic books. So he's asking, is Bruce Willis actually a superhero who can't be injured? Robin Wright Penn as Bruce Willis's wife. Oscar caliber supporting actress performance, in my opinion.
Yep.
But not only is it, okay, so the cinematography is done by Eduardo Serra. He had been nominated 3 years earlier for Wings of a Dove in 97. I have not seen that.
No.
He would later be nominated for Girl with a Pearl Earring, which I'm planning to watch for our 2003. He also did the cinematography for Deathly Hallows movies, both of them, and Blood Diamond. So this guy's legit. Every shot in this movie has this emblematic, powerful, like it's trying to convey something. So much so that it almost feels kitschy. But it doesn't get there. It pushes it to the limits. There's a staircase in almost, half the scenes. And there's a doorway in like half the scenes. And like some of the shots are kind of like weird and experimental in certain ways. But it totally works because it's about a comic book hero. And
a lot of the shots are long and unbroken, Brian.
Unbroken.
A lot of long
Really?
takes in
I
the
did not
movie.
know that.
And yeah, he tries to not cut whenever he's shooting Bruce Willis. That's why you see these long extended takes. I mean, you think about the opening scene where it's almost 7-10 minutes of him on the train, never cuts once, and we see the whole thing through a crack between two seats.
The crack thing between.
It's
It's
perfect.
so great. And you're like, you see the kid upside down. He's looking at a kid upside down. And then there's upside down kids in 3 other places in the movie. Just like every shot is so carefully planned. Yeah. And also, I mean, there's some great silhouette shots, anyway, it's just, it's so beautifully done. But even if all that were just, if that's all it was, then it would still probably be in the top 5. But the reason I put it as number 1 for me was because of the distance between it from 2000 to 2021 when I'm watching it now for the first time. I have now seen like 20 superhero movies in between that time.
Yep.
And they all feel like they were trying to bring the comic books to life. This one was actually like being a comic book. It was like creating its own, out of nothing. And so I think that now it feels totally ahead of its time. It feels like it was way ahead of its time looking back on it. But
also it's made for adults.
Yes.
And tonally, it does not have that bright aesthetic that a superhero movie is, supposed to have.
It is a hyper realistic story telling a superhero movie, which I think is so cool. And fantastic surprise ending, which you can expect from M. Night Shyamalan.
I'm so glad that you have that on your list.
I think you mentioned something about Unbreakable.
I was trying to kind of undersell it too because I didn't want to tell you how excited I was about it. I was like, yeah, you should maybe check out Unbreakable.
I mean, Bruce Willis movie. Yeah. But I watched it, and I watched half of it, and then I brought my kids in to watch it again.
Kids, come quick.
And it was so good. Anyway, that's my top 5.
I love it. Great pick. So my number 5 is Gladiator as well. I have my problems with it, but
a copycat.
I think a top 5 list from 2000 is just weaker without it on it. I mean, it really just comes down to that. In terms of pure enjoyment, I think I like Almost Famous better, and I wrestled a lot with whether or not to put Almost Famous here.
I thought about it, but it doesn't. It was a clear not top 5 to me. Although Kate Hudson is totally incredible.
She is great in it. She's great. But yeah, it's a firm number 6 for me. Just like The Insider was a firm number 6 in my 1999.
I'm sure that Almost Famous feels great about, being firm in number 6.
But what Ridley Scott does with digital effects to build this world, I think is really impressive. But I don't want to belabor the point. Let's go to number 4. That would be Requiem for a Dream, Brian.
This was one of my 2 near misses that I thought about kicking off Gladiator to put on Requiem for a Dream. Mm-hmm. I really thought about it because it is a masterpiece in its own
stylistically.
Yeah.
Aronofsky is just flexing.
Yeah,
it's just a tour de force.
Split screens, the fisheyes,
the editing is crazy. He does time lapses.
The fantasy's coming to life. Just it's incredible to watch.
But there's character there also. I mean, I think specifically of Ellen Burstyn, who plays the mother of Jared Leto.
She is amazing.
Jared Leto is constantly stealing her TV to go pawn it for drug money, and she's a widow now. and addicted to food and TV. Then one day she gets a phone call that she's going to be on her favorite show, which is this sort of inspirational infomercial.
So dumb.
Yeah, it's really bad. It reminds me of Tom Cruise's seminars in Magnolia. I'm not really quite sure why she's watching this, but it works for the tone that I think he's doing.
Yep.
But she has this monologue where she's talking to Jared Leto about what she plans to wear when she goes on the show. Mm-hmm. And it's the best emotional moment of the film, and I just want to play that now.
No, I'm telling you, I'm going to be a contestant on television. I don't know when yet. They haven't told me when yet, but you'll see how proud you are when you see your mother in a red dress, television, and golden shoes.
What is the big deal about being on television? Those pills you take will kill you before you ever get on, for Christ's sake.
Big deal? You drove up in a cab. Did you see who had the best seat? I'm somebody now, Harry. Everybody likes me. Soon, millions of people will see me and they'll all like me. I'll tell them about you, your father, how good he was to us. Remember? It's a reason to get up in the morning. It's a reason to lose weight, to fit in a red dress. It's a reason to smile. It makes tomorrow all right.
She is just, wow.
Moments like that elevate the high style to substance in this movie. I honestly, I considered this for my number one for a second.
Yeah, when I watched it, I also thought that it was probably going to be in the 1, 2, 3 slot.
So for a bit, it was in my number one, and then I said, I'm gonna move it to my number 2. And now it's at my number 4. But I had to knock it down because I can't find clear faults with my 1 through 3. But with this one, if I do have a complaint about it, it's that I think the theme is a little bit simple. It's basically that addiction is bad and comes in many forms.
That's what I thought too. Ultimately, like where he's got Aronofsky, the director, has this like huge firepower, laser. And what is he pointing it at? What is he trying to, I mean, I know we don't like messages. Well, you don't. But what is this? What's the theme of the story besides just, addiction is bad and everybody's addicted to something?
I think that there is depth in the idea that all of the addictions stem from a lack of love. And he tries to build that into all of the characters. I'm not sure it really works. Marlon Wayne's character, he kind of tries to tie it to his
movie too, though.
But they do those sort of, they're not really flashbacks, but you see images of his mother and we're supposed to think that's where his lack of love is coming from. The other ones are clear with Ellen Burstyn and Jennifer Connelly, but
great acting.
The performances are fantastic all the way across the board.
The cinematography is super inventive.
Yeah.
Better than Unbreakable. The cinematography, it's like so much more daring. And
well, this is an exercise in style, this movie. And one last thing about sort of a complaint is that ending sequence, I kind of feel like is a barrage and it works for... It gives you the feeling that Aronofsky is trying to give you, but I think that it just works to bring ideas he's already well established to extremes. So that's why it's my number 4.
We like happy endings.
Well, on this show. I don't know about that.
Best Picture, this is all about happy endings.
This movie is the most traumatic on the list, but that's because it's also the most immersive and I think the most cinematic. And by that I just mean that it experiments. That it experiments most with the form and it's telling its story visually.
Peter Travers, the immortal Peter Travers, Rolling Stone, he said it may be a bummer to some audiences. I think that's an understatement, but no one interested in the power and magic of movies should miss it. That's what made me watch the movie, actually.
100%.
Because I think that the cinematography, just like I was saying with Gladiator in the previous episode, this is a movie that does what this art form only can accomplish, which is weird, crazy things with the camera. And it just does it to
mixing that with
effect.
Music and mixing that with sound effects. The sequences that he has of quick cutting, lighting the spoon and then the boiling and just that whole sequence of getting high is great. And he uses it throughout for a lot of different ways. So I got to move on.
Okay.
The movie on this list that most deserves a modern reassessment is Unbreakable. It's my number 3. Shyamalan, he has this really, really patient, formal technique, which we were talking about before, the long takes, and he mixes it with the superhero movie, which is really a movie about faith. To me, this is a story about faith. It proves that Shyamalan didn't just get lucky, which I know some people like to say about The Sixth Sense, but The Sixth Sense is another superhero movie, which we had a conversation about in our episode in the 99 series.
It's supernatural, but in a very hyper-realistic way.
Yes, it's sort of a superhero movie that is not interested in mythology and in action. You know, it's more interested in alienation and learning to trust yourself, trust your gifts. So is Unbreakable.
And whether you believe that someone could have a superpower.
Yeah, and
which is a great question.
I love in this movie that there's always a shred of doubt. You know, he can lift a lot of weight on a bench press,
That's
but he
a great
doesn't go
scene.
crazy. He lifts like, what, 300?
350.
There's a deleted scene also in the special features where he lifts like 500. I'm so glad that they cut that out because we see him lift 300 and we say, oh, this guy's strong.
With the paint buckets on the...
But besides that, I mean, we don't see any superpowers here, which always kind of leaves that gray area of, you know, it's just a matter of him believing in himself more
he
than...
uses all these tropes, you know, the black hood.
I love that
cape.
character design.
It's great.
The cloak. So by the time the climax happens here and Shyamalan connects it to Willis's, big hero act, he connects that act with the act of him carrying his wife upstairs because he's saving his marriage, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
The movie could be over, right? All the loose ends are tied. It all works. But then he gives us 2 codas at the end that I think are just so perfect. The villain reveal is one thing, but then the silent moment between him and his son where he just slides a newspaper over the breakfast table. And it's just a silent moment where there's an acknowledgement that, you know, his son had to believe that this was true. And Willis just kind of gives that moment to him, but says, don't tell your mother, basically, with his eyes.
It's a happy ending family movie.
Yeah.
That's why we like it on Best Picture This.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, yeah, that's it. And if you still don't believe me, Tarantino called this one of the masterpieces of our time. Look on our Twitter at Best Picture This if you want to see that clip where he's gushing about this movie. And I was so happy to find that after I was all in on this movie, and then I found the clip and it just solidified it. Number 2, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. We've talked about this at length.
So what's your number 1?
Swordplay is high art. Genre uses a Trojan horse to sneak in philosophy and
I'm not listening to anything you're saying. I'm
human
trying to figure out
story.
what's your number 1.
And that's all I need to say about Crouching Tiger.
Must be Aaron Brockovich.
My number 1 is not Leprechaun in the Hood.
Must be Chocolat.
It is American Psycho.
Really?
I
did watch American Psycho, so it did not make my list. I wasn't even tempted to put it on.
There's no movie like it.
But there's a lot. I was impressed by a lot of things in it. So go ahead.
One thing I will say is between my top 3, they moved around a lot. I mean, Requiem, I said before, moved around a lot. My top 3, maybe on a different day, I would change the order of all of them. But I've seen this movie a lot of times. Rewatching it this time, I was laughing out loud consistently throughout the entire thing. I just think that it is perfect satire, and that's a credit to Mary Herron, the director. It's her vision, but none of it works without Christian Bale.
Christian Bale is tremendous. I love how he's giving this strange critiques of Huey Lewis in the news and all his his music. It's hilarious.
He understands the character, every single edge of the character, and he plays him as this perfect shell. You know, he's appropriated pop culture, like you're saying, as an identity, but he doesn't connect with any of the references or the ideas that he just is regurgitating.
You can tell he doesn't care about anything in his life, and he says that in the
At one point,
monologues.
he says, no, I'm in touch with humanity. And it's through those quotes, I think, the restaurant reviews, the music reviews, that he thinks he understands humanity, but he doesn't understand where the emotions came from that wrote those reviews in the first place. So this movie, it marries humor and surrealism in a way that we never really know what's real and what's fantasy, but that's okay because of the world that Herron creates. I mean, just like Bale's performance, it's so odd. He has line readings here as if he's rehearsed these lines all night. And I think that we're supposed to think in a certain way he has. But just listen to this clip where he's at a restaurant with friends and they start talking about social issues and Bale chips in his 2 cents.
Come on, Bryce. There are a lot more important problems than Sri Lanka to worry about.
Like what?
Well, we have to end apartheid for one, and slow down the nuclear arms race, stop terrorism, and world hunger. We have to provide food and shelter for the homeless, and oppose racial discrimination and promote civil rights, while also promoting equal rights for women. We have to encourage a return to traditional moral values. Most importantly, We have to promote general social concern, unless materialism in young people.
What a great guy.
I'm telling you, it's like a politician, but it's funny.
The music is great too.
Yeah,
I didn't notice
it
that.
swells
I
up
watched
just
this one
a
on
little
my
bit,
phone too.
just subtly enough to where it gives you that sense of him really giving an inspirational speech. But this time around, watching this movie, I thought a lot about Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I don't know if you've seen either.
It's been
of those.
a long time.
But I think that you can hear why in this clip. That is a performance, you know? And the business card scene where he brings out his card,
Yes.
everybody's comparing, that brings it, you know, even to the extreme, even after that, because all of these guys are indistinguishable from each other. They're all part of the collective.
What the business cards that really look exactly the same.
And they all say vice
and
president.
he's furious.
Oh my God.
Someone has
He even
a better
has a
one.
watermark. There are so many clips I could have picked here because the movie's so quotable. But I just love how Heron sort of manages to keep the high concept grounded and the pulp elevated.
So here's the challenge I have with you, because this is firmly below my number 6. Below Requiem for a Dream, for the same reason that I did not include Requiem for a Dream.
Yep.
Because in the end, okay, first of all, Christian Bale's breakdown confession scene, maybe his best acting that he's done in his career. But in the end, what is really the point of this movie? I mean, Requiem for a Dream is, it's bad to be addicted. Drug world is never going to get you any happier.
Well, it's not just drug world in that movie. I mean, the TV and food are no less addictions.
All the addictions.
Addictions to anything is destructive.
But in American Psycho, I felt kind of like it was a satire. It was a portrayal of, like, you know, serial killer. But
80s yuppies.
Yes, I didn't really understand like what. There was no happy ending to it.
I think it's a satire of yuppie culture, but I think it's also just a satire of facades in general. You know, I think it's a satire of people who do appropriate pop culture as an identity, whether it's on Twitter nowadays or us behind these microphones.
No,
No, not us. We're the exception. But no, I just think that I think that there are so many moments in the movie where we sort of recognize this inauthenticity that Patrick Bateman has constructed his entire persona around. But it's also colored with these really specific, subtle character moments. And Mary Herron, I think it's a credit to her because she has this female perspective. And the first sense that we get that Patrick Bateman is a predator is that he's just walking too closely to a woman at night. And that's it. And then we also have a lot of screen time given to Lewis's girlfriend, Courtney, who's displaced in the city and wants to be a mother. I just think those kind of connect the story back to humanity, and it just does so much for me. And on top of it, I just think that it's a great movie. I would say more, Brian, but I've got to return some videotapes.
that line, I would be curious to know what does that exactly mean. But that's a funny recurring like coda throughout.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's also disrupt the Oscars further. I just have 3 quick ones to say because the movie so we're now going to talk about, you know, kicking some Oscar picks off. Best actor to me is Tom Hanks in Castaway.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I said in the show about Castaway that this was maybe one of the best acting moments that I'd ever seen. You know, when he loses Wilson, I still agree with that. Kate Hudson is this is one for the ages, the supporting actress role. It was also hard to separate the writing because her character is so well written, but Kate Hudson as supporting actress. And then the movie that I wished I could include in my top 5, You Can Count on Me. Best original screenplay, Kenneth Lonergan. I think he should have gotten that.
It's a good one.
I will gush further over Manchester by the Sea in some future episode, also directed by Kenneth Lonergan. But this screenplay is, the characters are just so perfectly done. And I read one critic that was saying like, the dialogue is all like saying one thing and then almost wanting to say something else, but not being able to do it. And I think the command that Kenneth Lonergan has over that dialogue is superb in this movie. Would you like to kick any of the Oscars?
I would. Ellen Burstyn should have won Best Actress over Julia Roberts.
I agree
for
with
Aaron
that.
Brockovich. Marcia Gay Harden is good in Pollock, but Kate Hudson should have won for Best Supporting. Aronofsky not even getting a directing nomination.
He should have been at least
is
nominated.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think that he'd be my winner. honestly. But maybe even more egregious, no film editing for that either. The
Yeah.
movie's like half editing. Mary Harron, I think, should have been nominated for Best Director for American Psycho. If I had to pick one to kick, Soderbergh for Aaron Brockovich. I think
For director? Yeah. I don't think he should have gotten for
get him out of there,
director.
put Mary Harron in.
Totally.
Best acting, I think Hanks over Crow is an easy one, but Christian Bale wasn't nominated either, and he should have at least
Christian
been.
Bale was great.
Yeah.
He got his idea for how to play that by watching a Tom Cruise interview, by the way.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Golden Takes?
Golden Takes. Yes, I forgot about the Golden Takes. So to be quick on Golden Takes, couple observations. One, this movie had 3 out of 5 that were led by women protagonists. Aaron Brockovich, Chocolat, Crouching Tiger. That does not happen again until the movies expand, the list expands.
In 2009?
And we get to 2009, 2010.
Wow.
Where in 2009 you had Blindside, Precious, and Up in the Air, which that one even I wouldn't even
Up in
really
the Air?
say. It's a stretch. That's why I don't even count 2009.
That's a stretch, and still that's 3
And
out of
still
10, not
that's
3
the-
out of 5.
And that's really only 2 out of 10. But I was being generous because that's the closest you get. In 2010, you have Winter's Bone, Black Swan, and The Kids Are All Right, which I'll say is more female-centric. So it's 10 more years until we really get another, year of the women in
crazy.
this, which is, it's kind of crazy because there's studies that show that women-led movies actually do better in the box office.
Really?
So someone's not paying attention to that. But anyway, that's one. That was A, my Golden Take A. My Golden Take B is, I also saw the pattern with Castaway having, his girlfriend emotionally with him on the island. In Gladiator, you have his family emotionally with him, in Elysium. And then Crouching Tiger, when Chow Yun Fat, I'm sorry. Oh man, I look so culturally, ignorant. He's saying that when he dies, because of your love, I'll never be a lonely spirit. I thought that was interesting that you see that happen in 3 movies that are high profile, that the loved ones are with you in spirit. And that idea is kind of, this is what mythology and stories do, try to help us understand things like that, a human connection beyond, beyond death. So I thought that was interesting that Hollywood found that interesting that year. Do you have any golden takes?
I do.
You're only allowed one. We're only allowed one each.
1A. This was Year of the Indies. 3 out of my top 5, American Psycho, Requiem for a Dream, Crouching Tiger, were made for a combined $28.5 million. Put that in perspective, Unbreakable was made for $75 million. Gladiator was made for $106. Just one quick note on this. Requiem for a Dream was made for $4.5 million.
How much did it make?
I have no idea.
7.4.
Well,
So it made almost $3 million.
That's a
but
profit.
Didn't do too much.
But I mean, that American Psycho was made for $7. I'm just going to throw that out there. Those 2 tiny budgets, not nominated for anything. Coincidence?
Yeah.
But this year,
true.
I think we're looking at a lot of movies about escape, Brian. Last year, I made the case that the movies of '99 sort of epitomize this pre-9/11 feeling of restlessness.
I kept thinking about that because 2000 is also pre-9/11.
It is.
So go ahead.
Restlessness, but also resentment of the status quo. And I see this as kind of a continuation. The most obvious of the bunch is Castaway, escaping from the island. But the theme pops up in a bunch of the year's best. So we have Gladiator. He's trying to escape slavery, but he's also trying to escape duty, to Rome, and then to the idea of revenge.
I don't know if I
and
agree
then
with
ultimately of life, because he's trying to join his family in Elysium. No?
I'll have to think through that, but I will say that I will kick that.
I'm going to keep
Assessment
it
of
because I said it. Requiem for a Dream, escape in the most obvious form through drugs. Crouching Tiger, escaping oppressive social constructs that don't let you be yourself, that don't let you assert your individuality. Almost Famous, escape from the suburbs, escape into music, into drugs. Even the rock stars try to escape being rock stars for a bit. They try to find, quote, real people. Unbreakable, escape the lie of his youth that's held him back his whole life. The one that kind of kept him in this sort of box of mediocrity, but now he's achieving greatness because he's escaped. American Psycho uses violence and fantasy as a form of escape, again, from social expectations and convention. This is a character who's imprisoned by the yuppie lifestyle, but also by his illness, by his urges, and by his skin routine. Skincare routine.
He has nice skin.
Oh, yeah. Come on. He uses an exfoliator daily. But I think if we really wanted to get into it, you can tie this idea of escape into these movies all being sort of about obscured identity also. But it's all kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. Just real quick, we don't have time, so I won't get into it. But I will say that in 2000, maybe I'll put this on the social media page on either Facebook or Twitter. I think in 2000, we are right at the dawn of the superhero boom for Unbreakable, but also for other reasons, and that horror is dead.
The end of the period drama.
Yeah, I guess
Is that
so.
what you're saying?
No. The superhero boom in 2000, you have Unbreakable, but then you also have X-Men that year. But I don't want to get too far into this.
We're at the end of what?
At the end?
End of a period? End of a
No, we're right at the
era?
dawn. We're at the dawn of the superhero boom. And horror is dead. Last year, Blair Witch was the third best movie of the year, definitively.
Definitively.
This year,
objectively.
Yes. This year, horror is dead. And I'll
Get
talk.
out. Get out.
In 2000, Brian.
Get out.
In 2000, horror is dead.
Okay.
In the year 2000.
But there's a resurgence later on.
There is definitely a resurgence. I'm going to say around 2007 when Paranormal Activity comes out.
Let's do a little bit of trivia.
All right.
Real quick. Billy Elliot, which should have been in your top 5, Mike. Should have been. It earned $109 million worldwide.
Pretty good.
Budget, 5.
Wow, really?
That's pretty cool.
That was another indie.
Another indie that, again, nominated for 3 Academy Awards. That's pretty impressive for a movie like of this kind of scale. Couple other things. Jared Leto starved himself, lost 28 pounds for Requiem for a Dream. He spent time living on the streets. Aronofsky requested that Jared Leto and Wayans would refrain from eating sugar so that they would have realistic-looking cravings on screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Ellen Burstyn had makeup artists made 9 wigs and 4 necks for her. And some of her prosthetics took 4 hours to apply.
The special features on
Talk
that
about
DVD
a physical movie.
They have this this video that just shows a bunch of behind the scenes footage in no particular order. It's just shots, and Darren Aronofsky over it is just talking like, and here is oh look, that's Ellen Burstyn. She's putting on one of those fake necks. Yeah, that was actually pretty tough to make work. It's great. It's so weird, but you learn a lot.
In 100 minutes, the average film has 600 to 700 cuts in editing. Requiem for a Dream had more than 2,000 cuts.
It's all editing,
so it
and
kind of
didn't
shows
get
you
an
the
editing award.
It did. It was listed as the 29th best edited film of all time in a 2012 survey of Editors Guild.
Good.
So it kind of shows you that it has, kept, it has stood the test of time. Yeah, that's good with trivia. I have some Unbreakable trivia that I'll put on Facebook.
Yeah, I could talk about Unbreakable all day.
Good
But let's
movie.
talk about the next episode.
Next episode, we have our first guest.
Yeah.
Aleem Hossein. He's the director of After We Leave. It's a low budget indie sci-fi movie that made a splash in the Indie Awards circuits in 2019, including it won Best Feature Film at the London Sci-Fi Festival. Congrats to Aleem, who also went to the same high school I did.
Awesome.
So we'll talk a little bit about that. That movie is on Amazon Prime right now. So we'll talk to Aleem about his experience, his own top 5, and also we'll revisit another Best Pick nominee that he chose, E.T.
Yeah, an E.T. episode. That's going to be good. So we want to hear from you. Tell us about your favorite movies from 2000, or if you agree or disagree with our takes, let us know about that too, and we'll read your answers on the show. You can find us at bestpicturethis.com or on Facebook and Twitter at Best Picture This. Thanks to WNZF and Mark Gilliland for producing, and please rate, review, and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts, Brian.
Until next time, remember, the best movie of 2000 was
American
Unbreakable.
Psycho, and it's not close.
Chicken!